Welcome back to the On Purpose Investor podcast, show number 58.
If you have the inkling of a thought that you want financial freedom, then it's yours and it's meant for you. And all you have to do is take action to get there. And I know analysis paralysis and fear can overcome taking that action. And it's hard. But if you just take one small step at a time and trust that gut feeling, and it feels calm, that's generally your higher self.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor podcast with your host, Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We've spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we can have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Now, finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life. Now, sit back, turn up the volume, smash that follow button, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the On Purpose Investor podcast. I'm your host, Eric, with my amazing, lovely, redheaded, super sexy smile,
Tiffany.
Co-host.
Oh, it's so awkward.
I'm back. We're back.
Why is it just you back?
I'm back. You're back.
If anything, I'm back because you've been doing some stuff with guests.
Yeah,
without me. So
I did. You were in the hot tub.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome back to another week of the On Purpose Investor podcast, where today we're going to be talking about how to overcome analysis paralysis and start taking action. Yeah. Now, analysis paralysis is defined as you study something too much that you scare yourself out of doing it.
Yeah, it's running numbers on deals over and over and over again and never putting an offer in because you just get caught in like, is this the best deal? Or is there a better deal out there? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And you get in the hamster wheel of like fear. And we want to help you overcome that.
It could also be defined as someone maybe standing on the edge of a bridge and you're trying to decide whether or not the jump is worth it or not. But you do have bungee cords strapped to your feet, and this is a organized jump, a bungee jump, and you're trying to analyze, is the jump going to be worth the fall? Is it going to be worth it all? There's a lot of fear that goes into bungee jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge. One day I might do it.
Okay.
I don't think I will.
Okay. So
there's a lot of fear.
We went ziplining, so it's like jumping off the platform to zipline.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay.
Now there's a lot
I thought you were going a different path with that, and I was really concerned.
That's why I brought in the bungee cords.
Yeah.
There's this really unique video online that I watched maybe 3 or 4 days ago where this person is like having all these conversations with herself, and she's standing on the edge of this bridge and the cars are zooming by, and it just frames it in such a way that it looks like she's about to take her life and she's about to jump off this bridge. And then finally the camera pans around and there's this whole bungee jumping crew there. And it's like, she's like, I accept it. I'm going. She jumps. And then it was a bungee jump.
Okay.
And it's like, wow, that is not how I expected that to end.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know why I'm watching this right now because it's so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
But she was like telling herself all these things that were good about her life. And so it was almost tear-jerking.
You're tearing up now.
I know. It was scary.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, that's terrifying.
All right.
But analysis paralysis, it is, I know you're reeling me in.
Yep.
It is looking at all the assumed risks and never taking action because you're afraid of something going wrong.
Right. And I mean, this really could apply to any kind of fear. And I know taking those first steps to buy a rental property are terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember our first one, like, holy crap, we're going to have another mortgage for $200,000 on top of our already $200,000 mortgage.
That's like, enough to stop a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean,
right there.
It was a lot. And then it's like, and we have to figure out how to renovate it and manage contractors, which was ourselves, and finding tenants. Holy crap. What do you do when they mess up the house and pour concrete in the toilet? Or
what if they stop paying?
Right.
I've heard evictions are bad.
Right.
How do you even evict someone? We were putting like the possible numbers 8, 9, and 10 in front of number 1.
The steps, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
The 8, 9, and 10 may not ever happen, but
Right.
you want to be ready if they do.
Well, and if they do, you can generally outsource to have someone help you. So it's focusing on one step at a time. And maybe thinking about step 2 when you're on step 1. But I wouldn't go much past that. And a friend of ours he's renovating his first rental right now. And he like looked up and he's like, I have to figure out how to rent this place out now. And he's doing it though. Like he's one step at a time.
Yeah.
And it was really fun just like seeing someone actually do that in action of like just one step at a time. That's all you have. Put the blinders on and just go to the next step.
That's it.
So one of the things I've been doing in all of the downtime I've had with you gone, which is not a lot, but
don't let her fool you. She's had no downtime. All of her downtime she has spent preparing for the launch of Secure Legacy Code and studying her butt off on how to make sure we have the absolute best content to give y'all. And one course that she's been taking is called
Manifestation Babe Academy.
Manifestation Babe Academy.
Yeah. So it's all on manifestation and mindset. And I don't know. I feel like it's gotten so watered down with The Secret. And that's like one tiny piece of what we learned. We learned all about your conscious brain, your subconscious brain, a lot of like neuroscience stuff. Like it's real. I love it. It's been really interesting. And we have learned so much about things that had we known this stuff when we started, it would have helped us so much. One example that she gave in the course that just really resonated with me, and we're sitting in the podcast studio, right next to us is a big movie theater screen. And we've got the little movie projector up top. And your life is a movie. And we can change the film that's being played. So if you're watching a horror movie and you don't want to be in a horror movie anymore, you can put on a rom-com. And what she means by that is there are things in life that happen, and it's how we perceive them and the meaning we attach to them that portray the movie that's being played. So let's say you're in a car and it splashes water on a person on the sidewalk. If their lens is of a horror movie, they're going to see this is the worst thing that's happened to them. But if their lens is of a rom-com, maybe the guy that comes up behind them and gives them a towel, I don't know. But, you know, they frame it in a way of like, this life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. It's one of the biggest lessons I've gotten. And as I have struggled with things and identity over the last 6 months or so, it's realizing that these struggles are helping me become the person I need to be to build this program and this business. So one of the key things that we learned about is the difference between your ego and your higher self. And your higher self is kind of the subconscious level. It's you tapping into God, the Holy Spirit, the universe, however you want to look at it. I view it as talking with the Holy Spirit. And then you have the ego. And the ego is this internal, like reptilian brain side of things. And it's what keeps you safe. It's what keeps you from walking in front of the car that's splashing the water on you. It is a self-preservation tool. And part of the ego's job is to keep you safe. So back in the caveman days, community was important because it was life or death. And you didn't want to do anything that would potentially jeopardize your place in the tribe. So today, that doesn't serve us. Because if you post something on social media and get some haters, it does not have a direct impact on whether you eat that night or whether you sleep in the cave or not. But our brains are still wired in a way where we feel that. Yeah. So sometimes we won't post or share our dreams or do something that's really going to help us in the end because our ego is holding us back because of programming that comes from past generations or, you know, passed down from family or just things that are hardwired into our brain because we are animals at the end of the day. So there's two levels of thinking. You've got the ego that's trying to keep you safe and the higher self. And when you are approaching a real estate transaction, you want to make sure that you're thinking about it from that higher self perspective, not getting bogged down into the ego and the fear of self-preservation and listening to people who are not in a similar situation.
That was deep.
Yeah.
Anything like I'm just over here sitting here thinking, if I'm an animal, what kind of animal am I? I think I'd be like a rabid zebra.
So Maggie.
No, she's like a rabid rat.
Maggie's our Shizzy Yorkie, who's a hot mess.
She's dying, bless her heart.
Stop.
She got diagnosed with Cushing's, I think. Maybe. I don't know. She's a hot mess of a dog. Anyways, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, if I'm an animal, like, what animal instincts happen? And then my higher self, how does that live with my animal instincts?
I mean, you think about a zebra being hunted by a lion.
Mm-hmm.
The zebra doesn't have anxiety that the lion might approach. The zebra lives in the moment. And when zebra sees lion, zebra runs.
Yeah.
That is a true threat, and it runs. But if zebra's friends are talking about a lion that came by yesterday, they don't feel anxiety or fear about it because it was yesterday.
Right.
They live in the present.
So when we're approaching real estate in this framework,
Mm-hmm.
and I see a property that I might want to invest in,
Yeah.
I see all the things. I see, here's the work that needs to happen to it. Here's the purchase price. Here's how much financing is going to cost me, how much my holding costs are. Here's how much after repair value is going to be. Here's all the possible outcomes.
Right.
Here's the rent potential income.
Yeah.
Here is all the numbers.
Yeah. And that's fair.
Now, how do I make sure I'm channeling my higher self
Yeah.
or my rabid zebra?
Well, I think you want to use logic still.
That's the rabid zebra.
No, I mean, let's say the zebra is going to decide to go get water.
Okay.
It's still going to do a risk assessment on the way there to look around and see, are there lions? And then it's going to get the water. But it's not going to overanalyze.
Oh, there could be a lion behind that bush. Oh,
Yeah.
there could be a lion on the other side of that rock. I'm just not going to get water.
And I'm going to die.
And I'm just going to go find another hole to water in.
Yeah.
Or I'm just not ever going to get water and I'm going to die.
Yeah. But
So
that's not what the zebra is going to do. The zebra's going to get the water.
Sees the water, looks around. Oh, no lions.
Right.
I'm
and then if
water.
there is a lion, the zebra responds appropriately.
And runs.
Right.
Or sees if the lion is going to do anything and still gets
Yeah.
the water. Because I've seen those weird safari videos
Of course you
where
have.
the zebras are getting water and the lions are just right there. It's like,
Yeah.
that zebra is the zebra I want to be. Because it sees the risk and still goes after its reward. It's like, you know what? I'm getting my water.
Yeah.
Whatever, lion. It's a PG-13 show, so I'm not going to say exactly what that zebra was thinking. But yeah,
Okay.
he had a digit up.
Yeah. Part of his hoof.
he had the middle part of his hoof in the air.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's their tail. I don't know. So I'm approaching this real estate deal with this attitude, and I see all these possible outcomes. That is me recognizing there's risk.
Right. And that's okay to use logic. I'm not saying don't use logic by any means. I'm saying the way we analyze deals, we run the numbers and we're very factual with the numbers. Yeah. It's not, well, I guess we could cut the renovation by $10,000, and I guess we could say the rent will go up $100, and I guess we could say we don't do that.
We like to say we play very conservatively with our numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If the potential rent income is $1,350, most times we'll go with $1,250.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll do.
Right. We definitely undershoot a good bit.
Absolutely.
And there are times when we are analyzing a deal that we'll sit there and try to well, what happens? We think rent's actually 14. So let's go with 14. And that's when we usually shut it down because that is coming from the energy of more ego side. It's not going with the knowing. And the way I look at it is when we know a deal is the right deal for us, we feel a calm, peace energy and feeling in our body.
I call that the gut.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's your gut feeling.
We have always gone with our gut.
You've told me this a few times over the past few weeks that the gut feeling is that 90-something% of your brain, because we're only using how much?
5%.
We're only using cognitively 5% of our brain. 95% of our brain is subconscious, and it's going to making your body run, and it's going to, essentially keep you alive.
Right.
And a lot of it's untapped potential.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's so many pieces of information coming at us every day. And you think about when you're driving, if you're going on a route you've done every day for the last 2 years, you're not paying attention to every little thing.
Right.
You're just paying attention to the things you need to. And that's where you're only using 5% of your processing power. The 95% is just like background RAM, kind of a way to look at it.
And that's the 95%.
Yeah. So there is definitely untapped potential there.
But it's also that gut feeling that we get if a deal's a good deal or a bad deal. It's actually logical.
Right.
It's not just coming out of an intuitive state.
Right.
It means something.
Right.
Okay.
So we did a flip a few years ago, and we both just did not I felt queasy in my stomach is how I feel it.
Every time I walked through that property before we bought it, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a problem, or this is going to be really challenging.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this will work. Like, it could be really cool. My ego was leading the charge.
And I was working on something else. I think I was pregnant with Otto, because I remember going down those stairs and it was super moldy. So we sent my butt back upstairs.
That's right.
So we did not go with, for me, I feel it in my stomach. That's why I always say, how does your gut feel? Some people feel it as like tension in their chest. It could be a headache. Like it manifests a lot of different ways.
Some people even say, don't literally see left and right shoulder angels, but I feel a presence over here telling me to not do it, or I feel something over here telling me to do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Do it. Don't do it. Do it.
Yeah.
And while, the Hollywood has made the left and right shoulder,
I think Bugs Bunny more than Hollywood.
Bugs Bunny. Yeah. But that intuition, it speaks to you in different ways.
Right.
My mom always called it her gut feeling.
Right.
I just got a bad feeling about this.
Right. And we have learned to really trust that, because we didn't on that deal and we came out okay, but it
still to this date, it was the worst deal we've ever done.
I mean, our very first deal would have been a similar situation, and we got down 6-9 months into it and we're like, you know what, is this the right deal? Like, how do you feel about it? And we both were like, I just don't feel good. Yeah. So it's kind of like, do the numbers line up? And then how do we feel about it is how we determine if it's a deal for us. We bought a rental that was going to be a pad split, rent by the room, co-living property. And that didn't work out. That strategy wasn't going to work out. And we didn't follow our fundamentals and making sure that it would cash flow as a traditional rental. So
we did. It was going to be really close. But about 2.5 weeks into my renovation, we just uncovered so much in that property that led us to have to completely renovate it. I mean, we had to turn it from a quasi lipstick to a full gut.
Yeah.
And when that happened, that moment happened, it was we have to find a way out of this as quickly as possible.
Right. Well, it no longer made sense to keep it as a rental. So we decided to flip it. And we talked about it a lot. And it's like, this is going to be basically a brand new house. Like, it's in a good location. Dang, I want to keep it. But we ran the numbers on it and it just doesn't work. So the gut feels like, yeah, we should keep it.
Yeah.
But the numbers are telling us no.
Right.
And we have to go with the numbers on this. And once I ran the numbers and saw it, then my gut steered me back towards, we need to just flip it.
I really do hate to let go of a property that's going to be super solid and super nice. Because, every day I'll get an update from my contractors and they'll just tell me, hey, the new framing's done, or the new electrical's in, and it's like, gosh, all this nice stuff. It's going to be a brand new house.
Right. But
new windows and all.
I think the time is not right for us with our current cash position.
Right.
To invest the money that it needs to keep it.
Right.
We can front the cash on a short-term basis, but we need that cash back.
Yeah.
And maybe in a couple of years we buy it back and take a little bit of a hit on paying it on the upside, but it's just, the time's not right.
Right.
And as much as we hate it, we have to go with the numbers in our gut is what it boils down to. So we're not just focused on the numbers. And I'm a finance person. Like, I love the numbers, but we realized even when the numbers tell a story, if your gut's saying something different, we just have to go on with something else.
So one exercise that we did in Dream Life University and that we often do together to get over analysis paralysis is we get out a sheet of paper and we draw a line down the middle and we write, best position, worst position.
Right.
And we call it the best case scenario, worst case scenario. And we do this with a lot of decisions we make.
Right. Let's talk about our house that we're in right now.
So when we bought this house, we bought it with the sense of it could be our house, but it could be a flip, or it could be an Airbnb, because it could have been a lot of things. It was a great buy.
Right.
In a really good location.
And we had no intention of moving. I was very, very pregnant. Like, I think when we found it, I was 7 months
You
pregnant.
were 7 months pregnant when we found it.
Right.
You were 8 months pregnant when we finally closed on it.
Yeah.
So you were 1 month away from delivering Liam when we closed on this house.
Right.
In its previous state.
Yeah. And it was lipstick. It didn't need a ton of work, but
Right.
we wanted to remodel our bathroom and stuff. So there
were a couple of major renovations that happened, but majority of the house was lipstick.
Yeah.
And we just, on a sheet of paper, we wrote the best case, worst case scenario.
Right. And I mean, the worst case was we sell it and flip it. And the best case was we have our dream house once we're done renovating it. And in that best case, well, in both cases, it involved us moving while I was very pregnant.
Days from delivery.
Yeah.
But in that worst case scenario, we also went down the rabbit holes of, okay, if we sell it, here's the worst case scenario.
Right.
We're X amount of dollars all in. It sells, worst case scenario for this. We stand to make or break or lose this much. Here's another worst case. If we set it up as an Airbnb, here's some of the worst case scenarios.
Right.
Here's the worst case vacancy. Here's the worst case this. And then we said, if we move into it, here's the worst case. We buy it. We're not done renovating it when Liam comes.
Which was fact.
And if that happens, then we make sure one part of the house is done.
Right.
That way we can live in one part of the house while the other part of the house is still getting renovated.
Yeah.
Or we keep our other house that we were currently living in.
We didn't have to move before he was born.
Right.
There was a lot at play.
And then we moved over to the best case scenario.
Right.
And we said, okay, as a flip, here's the best case scenario. It sells top dollar and we could stand to make this much money.
Right.
And on the best case scenario, you want to be realistic, but you also want to let it excite you.
Right.
So best case scenario on the flip, we could have stood to make 200K, right? 150 to 200K on the best case scenario. On the best case scenario on the Airbnb side of it, we could have stood to have made $5,000 to $6,000 a month in the best case scenario.
Right.
And then on the best case scenario of us moving in it, it was we have our dream house.
Right.
The whole house is done in 28 days from closing and it's all renovated. And we have our dream house and we have our pool and we have, our theater and we have our podcast studio and we
everything
have your
that
office and
we were going to build on the 10 acres that we had was here and then some. So the best case was we shortcutted our dream property and got it in, today instead of waiting 5 years.
And we got it for about $500,000 less than what it would have cost for us to build this place.
So that was the scenario. Like we broke it down and it's like, okay, we need to buy this because the worst case scenarios on all of these we can handle. Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is in Dream Life, we did this with all of our students. We envisioned buying our first properties or something like that. And then we went down and envisioned our worst case scenarios. And then we envisioned our best case scenarios. And then I had them actually try to put themselves in the shoes of the worst case scenario and say, can you live through this?
Yeah. I mean, it's like we talked about earlier, all the things that steps, you should focus on step 1 and 2. But if you can't and you feel the need to plan out future steps, okay, a tenant doesn't pay and you have to evict them. What is the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
You hire an attorney and you're out $1,000.
Right.
You give them cash for keys and you're out $1,000. You miss a couple months of rent. So all in, let's say absolute worst case scenario is $5,000 at most.
Right.
And yes, they could damage the property, but we have found generally if you're nice to them and work with them and don't get into the nasty fighting matches that a lot of tenants will try to push, they leave the house in great shape.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the absolute worst case scenario when looking at your first 1 to 5 properties, your worst case scenario typically leads to you having to sell the properties at a loss. You have some type of really bad debt that you have to carry, or you broke even and now you just don't have any properties, or you go bankrupt, right? And like you're in a really bad spot financially.
Right.
You bankrupted, you got out, but your worst case scenario is essentially your current state. You are still like me. If we worst case scenario our first 5 properties, I left teaching already.
Yeah.
In those first 5 properties. If we worst case scenarioed in our first 5, what would have happened is is we would have went bankrupt, right? And you would have stayed at your job, your corporate job. I would have went back to teaching.
Right.
We would have learned a really hard lesson. We would spend the next 5 to 7 years paying off that debt that we may have had, or recovering our credit.
Right.
And learning what we did wrong, and ready to tackle it again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that is the absolute worst case scenario. Most likely scenario, you're going to have some equity in that property and you might have to write a $10,000 check. You're not going to lose $100,000.
No.
So the idea is, let's take the absolute worst thing that could happen to you and write it out and look at it on paper. And then you realize, well, it's not that likely that we're going to have to file bankruptcy after buying 2 houses.
Right. The more likely is you're going to have to sell for a break even or a small loss and move on with your life.
Right.
With all of the knowledge and experience that you gained doing it.
Right.
Which usually positions you to be more successful the next time around.
Right. As you're focusing on steps 1 and 2, don't go into steps 5 with no resources or education. You want to take it slowly.
Yeah.
But if you're terrified of tenants and renovating a house, flip one. Yeah. Learn that renovation side of it. Learn the buying, the renovating, and the selling side. And then the next one, buy and make it a rental. And that way you know how to renovate and buy. Mm-hmm. And then you're just adding on the step of leasing at the end instead of selling.
Yeah.
You can take it in slow steps, but focusing on what is the absolute worst that can happen. It takes some of the fear out, because you see it on paper and it's like, this is highly improbable and I can find a way to get through it.
Yeah.
And then you see that best case scenario, and your worst case usually is that status quo of, I'm going to continue working my job, which was my plan before I got into this anyways.
Yeah.
But then you look at the best case and it's like, well, shoot, I could be financially free in 5 years and have free time with my kids that I never would have ever had. Then that risk is worth it.
Or I can travel more.
Right.
Or,
whatever your dream life is.
Help my family more.
Yeah.
Whatever your best case scenario would be.
Right.
So the idea of that best case, worst case scenario is to really get on paper the potential outcomes.
Right.
So that you can see on paper, like, what is that higher self forecasting and what is the ego saying? And it really helps you to delineate.
Yeah.
Is this my gut or is this, reality?
Right.
So getting it on paper helps.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of times we hear the stuff of like, what if a tenant doesn't pay or trashes the house and stuff like that. And I think when you see it on paper, you have to realize, like, people do this every day. Like, going and doing an eviction is a fun afternoon for you now because it's an entertaining day and sitting in court.
Well, there's so many fun things that happen in that courtroom.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the amount of arguments I've seen between boyfriend and girlfriend, or husband and wife, or parents and children.
Yeah.
I saw one where this grown man sued his parents for something that happened when he was like 18. I was like, is there no, like, what do they call it?
Statute
of limitations. Like, this happened like 25 years ago for you, dude. Like, and it was something really similar. It's like they sold his Pokemon cards at a yard sale. And he was like suing him over it.
That's insane.
I was just amazed by that.
Yeah. I mean, that's coming from an ego energy of the short-term gain. And I think our approach is really sitting in silence and just having an opportunity where you're not on your phone, you're not scrolling social media, you're not playing a game, you're just sitting there thinking and letting things come into your brain. Because you'll be surprised, like, if you give space, whether it's while you're driving or walking or just sitting, or in the shower thoughts are.
You were telling me about that the other day, about people are sometimes triggered by water.
Yeah.
And that water thinking is a thing.
Right. And you know how many ideas I get, like, in the pool? There was one day a lot of the content that we're building out right now came to me while doing laps in the pool. And I just would do a lap, go do voice memo, take the note, and then go do another lap. And it's creating space to hear from yourself ideas. And it's crazy. Like, the number of ideas that will just pop into my head and I'm like, oh, that's gold. And I can tell you, when I have an idea that I think is really good, my body tingles. Like I get this energetic feeling and it's like, I know this is the right direction. And I just trust it and go with it. And I think that's what has made us successful.
That usually happens to me in my morning movement after coffee.
Oh. We don't need some potty jokes. Come on.
Honestly, a lot of my thinking comes when I'm driving.
Yeah.
I like to let the windows down a little bit and no radio and just hear the wind and see things. Usually driving down, not the interstate, like country roads or something. And so I'll sometimes take the long way to drill and go up the back roads around
That's
Atlanta.
why it takes you so long to get home. I'm kidding.
I'll drive the back roads.
Kidding.
And just let the wind blow through the truck and
through your hair.
Luscious locks. Turning gray.
You should watch the YouTube for that hair.
Oh,
it was like an old school Herbal Essence ad.
I felt like David Hasselhoff.
Okay.
Yeah, so driving, I think wind.
Yeah.
And air.
You might be an air sign. I don't know.
Like air and wind. Like when I was on the beach up there at that military school, I would often just stand on the beach and let the wind come off the ocean. And I just stand there and just watch the birds flying over the ocean and just get so many thoughts.
Yeah.
I haven't really communicated or allowed myself to communicate with myself as deeply as you have. You've done a lot of work.
I've done the work,
to understand what that feels like and what to look for.
Right.
I feel like I've had it, but I don't feel it in a way that I can.
Right.
And I look forward to going through some of that work that you've gone through so that I can start channeling those energetic feelings.
You channel it. It's just you don't know how to read it.
Right.
And you don't know how to recognize it. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the word of the year. And that's something we have done in the past. We didn't do it this year because life was super chaotic between a newborn and you leaving for schools.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, what should my word be this year? And the word that came to mind was power. And I was like, I don't like that. Like, I don't want that to be my word.
Last year, your word was grace.
Yeah.
To give yourself grace and to be open to receiving grace.
Yeah. So this year, the word power came to me and I didn't like it. I was like, what does that even mean? Like, that's weird. But the more I thought about it, it's coming into my personal power and being my true self so I can show up as the best wife, mom, business owner, podcaster, all the things. And it really is the word that I needed for this year.
Yeah.
But when it first came up in the past, I would have been like, that's stupid. Let me pick a different word. But that is the first thing that popped into my head. And that became my word for the year. It's almost like just letting go and not overthinking things and just trusting your brain and your subconscious to give you the information you need when you need it.
Right.
Because there's some crazy stuff that we've learned about how we're all interconnected through the collective unconscious. Like, I don't know, we can tap into so much if we allow ourselves to. And I know this is getting super woo-woo-y, but it is what made us successful, but we didn't know it.
Yeah. And now we're starting to channel it and starting to be able to understand it in a better way so that we can teach you.
Right.
On how to connect with the higher self, your higher self, so that you can be as successful as your life is destined to be.
Right. And, she teaches in Manifestation Babe, if you can dream it, it is destined for you.
Yeah.
So if you can dream of having financial freedom, then it is possible. Because if it's possible for us, like, we're nothing special.
No, I'm a dirt road youngin' from Whitesburg, Georgia.
Yeah. I'm a little bit special, but
she's definitely special.
But we were able to do it. So anyone can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen people that started with nothing and are able to find freedom.
Yeah.
So if you have the inkling of a thought that you want financial freedom, then it's yours and it's meant for you. And all you have to do is take action to get there. And I know analysis paralysis and fear can overcome taking that action. And it's hard. But if you just take one small step at a time and trust that gut feeling or however you feel it, if you hear a feeling or sense a feeling inside of you and it feels calm, that's generally your higher self. But if it feels panicky, like, oh my gosh, if I buy this house, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know what I'm going to do. Holy crap. We're going to die. Like, it's this super high, like, stressful energy.
Mm-hmm.
that is your ego talking, and it's trying to keep you safe from something.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily for your better life.
Right.
When your higher self is speaking to you, it's just a very calm, like, this deal just isn't the right one.
Now, so yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That calm feeling could be go for it or don't go for it.
Right.
But until you feel that calm answer, keep looking for that answer.
And talking about the house that we were going to rent, then flip, and then wanted to keep as a rental, once I ran the numbers on it and saw what we were looking at, it was like a 1% cash on cash return.
Yeah.
And my argument to you was we could take that cash and go pay off a property and earn the 8% that we're paying in interest versus the 1% of keeping this. And once we had that conversation, it went from a panicky, stressed out feeling in my chest to that calm.
Yeah, it was
the right decision.
It was the, oh crap, we don't necessarily have the cash to keep this as a rental. Oh boy, we could flip it, but also I don't know if it's gonna break even or not, and I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Are we gonna make money? And
your argument was I would rather break even on a rental than break even on a flip.
Yeah.
And very valid thought. But when you have to put cash into it, if we didn't put cash into it, that statement made perfect sense.
Yeah.
But by having to put a significant amount of cash to keep it, we were better off doing something else with that money.
Right.
I think once we had that conversation, we both felt that like calm, peaceful feeling.
Yeah.
And as much as we hate to see it go, we know it's the right move for us.
Mm-hmm. Makes me think of that Eagles song. I've got a peaceful, easy feeling. You like that song?
Oh, I thought you were doing like a drum intermission in your head.
I felt it in my head.
Okay.
Don't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing on the ground. No?
No.
I think it's the Eagles.
It might not be.
I'm pretty sure it is, but but when you get that peaceful, easy feeling of an answer, that is your answer.
Right.
So the analysis paralysis usually happens when your ego is just eating you up.
Exactly. Analyze the deals. Do the work. Do all the things you need to do to know that it's a good deal or not. But I remember our first deal that didn't happen. We were stressed out the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because that deal was not meant for us. I know it's because of that. And when we got the next one, like you went and put an offer on it before I even saw it. And we were doing everything hand in hand back then.
Yeah.
But I knew the numbers and felt comfortable off the pictures of what I saw. And you saw the property and had enough knowledge of renovating. We learned a lot.
Yeah, we did.
But that house, it's probably our best property now.
Yeah.
And we tried to sell it and it didn't work out. So it's like, we have to keep it apparently.
I don't think we can ever sell it.
Right.
It's like the universe won't let us sell it. And that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing I've taken away is things all work for our benefit. And if something is challenging happening, it is for your benefit. And this year has been incredibly challenging for me personally and just a lot of growth. But as I was going through it, as terrible as it was, I knew it was going to make me stronger and a better person. Are you really doing this right now?
It was the Eagles. I was right.
Okay. They can go listen to the Eagles on their own time.
That's what you want to feel like when you've come to a decision. Like the Eagles. It's a good song. I apologize.
I'm off my soapbox.
You're off of it?
Yeah.
You want to help you down from that?
No.
Here, give me your hand. Let me get you down from your soapbox. There it is. Watch that on YouTube and see what she just did. All right, y'all. So hopefully we've given you some tools to, while you're analyzing deals, not to get stuck in analysis paralysis and let fear make those decisions for you.
Yeah.
You've got to channel that higher self-talk to understand that it is a clear subconscious and conscious decision of whether to do the deal or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're unsure and don't know what your gut is saying, or if that energy is panicky or calm, do the best case, worst case scenario game.
Mm-hmm.
And just map out, like, if this happens, here's the best case, here's the worst case.
Right.
And I think that'll give you the clarity you need to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
And we're not saying just go with your gut on everything. Run the numbers, use your logic, and use this as a backup tool to help make those decisions.
Yeah. Don't be the zebra.
The rabid zebra.
Don't be the rabid zebra that stands on the hillside looking at the water and never goes and takes a drink because it's so afraid the lion is going to jump out of nowhere and eat it. Instead, be the zebra that scans the terrain and understands a lion might come, but it's not there right now. Go get your drink of water. And if that lion comes, have an exit plan.
Yep.
Get out of there as quick as possible.
Exactly.
But don't spend your life afraid of the lion.
Yes.
All right. We'll come back next week with something fantastic for episode 59. Goodness. We're almost at 60 episodes now.
Crazy.
So we're doing good.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be probably really good practice to
bye, y'all.
Leave this episode with some good eagles.
Let the poor people go.
Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get all the latest updates. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review wherever you watch our podcast. All right, now go smash that subscribe and follow button for more tips on building your dream life. See you next week, Pathfinders.